This is episode 3 of the Christian Athlete Podcast, where we spend time discussing how athletics can push us to greatness and we can pursue excellence while keeping Christ at the center of it all and kind of what the tension in those things is. Today we have Paul Fay, my good friend, one of my favorite humans. We had the wonderful opportunity of playing football at Wheaton College together, and we even threw some shot and disc together a little bit. Um, Paul grew up in Roscoe, Illinois. He participated in football, wrestling, track and field. He was quite successful in all of those, and then ultimately decided to play football at Wheaton College. And yeah, he said that he decided to go to Wheaton because it was the place that he felt like he would be shaped into the man he wants to be. And I think that's an experience that I saw happen in Paul's life there, and I'm excited to talk to him about that. And then after Wheaton, he spent some time, one season with the Quad City Steamwhalers, and then one season playing football with the Iowa Barnstormers, and now he's coaching at Wheaton. I guess the way I want to start, Paul, is really to maybe talk about sports in your childhood and for sports something kind of your entire life, and what did that mean to you growing up?
Yeah, well, glad to be here, Jaden. So to answer your first question about sports and everything growing up, it was just, yeah, I'd say it was part of my life my entire time when I was growing up. Remember playing like little league soccer with the orange slices, and all that stuff. Where like as long as I can remember playing like uh, little league basketball, like I would say that around here. I don't know if that's what it's called everywhere, but it's kind of what we did here with the YMCA. All those different like sports as soon as I could, flag football, and then obviously as I got older, kind of went into football as my main thing, and got really into wrestling and throwing shot put and discus at the high school level, and those were the three that I was most invested in and have had like played at a high competitive level beyond just like growing up playing the regular like sports that everyone does. But it was always something I wanted to do. I loved from the beginning being on teams and just being a part of that culture and spending time with people. So that was awesome. And then a big thing for me is like my dad was an athlete. He played college football at Wheaton as well. So I always thought it was super cool. And then I wanted to play football. Like most young men growing up, I really looked up to my dad and still do in a lot of ways. But like I wanted to be like him, so I really wanted to play
Yeah.
football. So football was the one that I fell in love with. So the joke was my grandma always joked to my dad that I was going to get really into soccer because apparently I was good at it when I was younger.
Hmm.
But I don't think I would have done as well in the soccer realm with my athletic giftings as I did in football.
Yeah, I have a hard time picturing that. So, with your dad having played Wheaton football, kind of how early on in your life did you start to see football as like a formative opportunity in your Christian walk?
I mean, when football became a like football really wasn't connected to my faith really for most of my
Like
life.
all the way through high school?
I feel like in high school I would have said like it was like I want to give glory to God. I want to do all say the right things, but I mean I was selfish and vain and wanted to pursue the things for me and my own success and wanted to do all that. And I mean there was definitely times that I turned to the Lord as a result of football,
Mhm.
like when I had the like seizures and everything, and had that viral brain infection. Football got stripped away from me. That was the first time that football kind of got all connected to my spiritual life, where I had to like turn to the Lord because I was just mad at the world. But then I feel like once football started going the way I wanted to again, it kind of just was like, okay, like I'm a football player again. That's who I am. I want everyone to know I play football. I want people to know I'm a good football player, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about that story you just kind of hinted at?
Yeah, so my junior year of high school, um, the Thursday before our second game, I had a seizure at school. So kind of the way I remember it is was just normal day at school. I had a seizure. I woke up and the ambulance was like, "Oh, what's going on?" I'm kind of confused, obviously. So that was the beginning of it. That I ended up going to the hospital, getting checked out. They were like, "Oh, it's kind of like a freak incident, freak accident, or whatever." So I was like, "Okay," and then the high schooler made the football player first. Always, I was like, "So like I can play,
Hmm.
right?" And they're like, "Yeah, like we don't see any reason why not. If anything's bothering you, like you gotta be careful and like come back in when it happens. So I went back Thursday night. Like our team used to do like a pasta dinner and do all that. So I went. I told the coach, I was like, yeah, like I'm good to go in and play. So I'm like, I can play tomorrow. I can start. Like it was gonna be another big game, second game of the year. Gonna get another start. So I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. And then after that, I went home. Don't really remember any of this, but then um, I went upstairs to go to bed because I needed to get my rest, get ready for the game. Obviously, I was kind of all discombobulated, all those things, and then that's like the last day I remember for like 48 hours because I went upstairs, went to bed, and then I don't remember any of that, but the Lord definitely had a hand in it because I came downstairs and just sat down and talked to my dad on the couch for no apparent reason.
And you don't remember this?
Nope. And then I had another seizure, and then they obviously took me to the hospital, and then I had like a bunch of tests and things I had to do. But they were like, yeah, if you didn't like go down, if I had just like had a seizure in bed and stayed in bed all night and no one knew about it till the morning, they're like, there was a good chance like you would have just been brain dead. Um, so it was really stressful for everybody involved except me because I didn't really know or remember any of it. I remember I woke up in the hospital. I was like, okay, like I was like, what's going on? I gotta go. I got a game and all these things. And they're like, no, like the game was like 2 days ago. Um, and then I had to stay in the hospital for a while and all those things. They found out I had viral encephalitis. They don't really know what it came from. A good chance that it stemmed from like I went on a mission trip the summer before to Kenya, so there's a chance it could have stemmed from that or just anywhere. So that was really trying because obviously I missed a game, and then I didn't get cleared for a week after that. And then when I came back, I couldn't get didn't get my starting spot back right away.
Mm.
And I felt like I was really had got kind of like screwed over, and like even if like looking back on it, like even if I was better, I mean the coaches could have different opinions, all those things, but I mean from their perspective, it's like this kid has a serious brain trauma. Do we want to put him back on the field? I was being selfish. Like our team was still having success and still winning. I was getting to play a lot, like rotating, still starting a lot of games, but I didn't feel like I was getting what I wanted or my vision for the season. So it was a tough year for me mentally, and just felt kind of like I had worked so hard for so long to be my first like year as a full-time varsity starter, and then it kind of fell apart, and I really struggled with that. And I turned to the Lord some in that time, but like I said, I kind of once things started going my way again, I was back to just being the same.
Sure. Yeah, that's a crazy story. And I think that kind of maybe hints at the beginning of how your identity in sports kind of shifted over your time at Wheaton. And I'm sure you continued to go on and find success and kind of get distracted from the things that really matter by the things of this world, right? And what you felt like you could accomplish on your own. And we'll get more into kind of your journey at Wheaton and beyond. But I guess the first thing I'd like to discuss before that is kind of your recruiting journey. Growing up, we were kind of in adjacent friend groups. We didn't necessarily know each other directly or know each other very well, but I always viewed you as like a fantastic athlete, one of the more talented football players I knew, and I know you had at least some Division I interest coming out of high school. So what was that recruiting journey like, and kind of the thought process that ended up taking you to Wheaton?
Yeah, part of like with being like my identity in football and being super invested into that and wanting to be successful and wanting people to view me in a certain light led to me like going to a bunch of camps and trying to get the recognition and get the accolades and get like a bunch of opportunities and offers. And like I had some, like you said, I had some opportunities in Division I interests. I had some walk-on opportunities to like bigger schools. Like Illinois was like a bigger school walk-on opportunity that was probably the most seriously done on their end and by my end. Then I had some FCS offers. A lot of that started picking up more as I was kind of ready to decide I wanted to go to Wheaton. I'd always been talking to them, but like Eastern Illinois came in and so that would have given me a full ride. But I kind of shut them down because I had more or less made up my mind. Quite a few schools reaching out at that time, in addition to like a couple other FCS offers and other Power 5 schools that were talking to me potentially about like walking out and things like that. So I felt like that had sounded really cool my entire life, and there's a couple factors that led me to go to Wheaton. I grown up around the program. I started going to games when I was young. I had a great relationship with like Coach Scott, who's the head coach there now, who I get the privilege of working under, and I got to play for my entire career with him coaching the offensive line. So that was a great thing. And then Coach Schweider, who was the head coach our freshman year at the time. So I had a good relationship with him and Coach Peltz, and kind of saw the way that the program, just kind of like some of the inner workings of it, and kind of fell in love with it and was more invested into Wheaton football than a lot of things when I was in high school, like missing like homecoming to go to watch a Wheaton football game, and things like that. So I had fallen kind of in love with it, the other thing I'd kind of fallen in love with was more like the idea of being a D1 football player and what people thought that would mean, and what way people would look at me for that. But once I really thought about it, I took my visit to Wheaton, and I talked to my parents, who they had blessed me. By no means was like going to Wheaton an easy decision financially for me and my family, but they had kind of been saving up and made some sacrifices, so it was possible to do that. With the combination of working, taking out some loans, doing all those things, and mostly because of the sacrifices that they had made. But that allowed me to really consider it, and I visited, and I was just like, yeah, like this is where I need to be. This is where the Lord is calling me. It was like one of the first times I feel like I knew what the Lord wanted, and I actually listened. Instead of doing what everyone around me wanted me to do or expected me to do, because I mean, it would have been a really big deal for me to go to like a Big Ten school coming out of my high school, but it hasn't really happened. Now a ton of guys go to big schools. I mean, not to say we're having anyone go on be successful from my school or my area, but like it would have been, I would have been doing what everyone wants or expected of me, not necessarily what was the right thing for me. So, and part of it was the lack of maturity I had in some ways, and knew I would probably continue to slip into things and just not develop the way I wanted to and surround myself with the people I wanted to. I would have still been a Christian, and I would have said I was, but I would have went there and kind of just been Christian only in lip service and saying the right things and going to church with my parents, or maybe go on Sundays just to make them happy, not really because I was eager for it and wanting to grow. And then when I went to Wheaton, kind of saw the guys that I wanted to be like, who loved Jesus, were tough, were good at football, and kind of was like, this is who I want to be, where I want to be, not necessarily what the world was telling me I should do. So I thank the Lord that He gave me the discerning ability at that time to hear His voice and listen to Him.
Yeah, despite temptation and your sinful nature, that's just grace from God, right? So would you say that kind of early on in high school and maybe up through junior year and even that senior football season, you viewed yourself as like Paul Fay football player, and then like making that decision ultimately to go to Wheaton was like maybe the first moment when that identity kind of started to fall away? You started kind of to kill Paul Fay football player and start to root your identity more firmly in Christ?
I'd love to say yes, but I still would say I was Paul Fay football player, but I was Paul Fay Wheaton football player.
Sure.
And I wanted to go to Wheaton. I wanted to do all those things, but I still was like, first and foremost, was like, I want to be a very successful football player. That's how I'm going to earn the respect of everybody. That's how I'm going to make my mark. So
then, you said at Wheaton there's all these guys you wanted to be like, and I feel like during my time at Wheaton, I had a very similar experience, minus the big time recruiting. But did becoming like those men happen automatically? Was that something that just kind of happened magically, like we imagined?
No, it was very much. If anyone's listening, I'm sure a lot of the people who would listen are going to be Wheaton football guys, or families are connected to it. Hopefully, it continues to grow and branch out. But we always talk about like buy into the program. Don't try to change the program. Let the program change you. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely like a long, slow process. And there's things about it that hurt for all of us that have been through it. But it was definitely like, it took time. I'm sure like those guys feel the same way that I did at the end, where it's like, I don't have it all together.
Yeah.
I'm sure if high school me saw senior me, fifth year version of me, I would have been like, this guy's got it figured out. He's mature.
Hmm.
He's like, this is kind of who I want to be. Um, but I think it's like with all things regarding like sanctification, it's a process and it's going to take a lot of time. And I think Wheaton football has been the best and most important part of that process of me trying to become more like Christ. And I think there's going to be a lot more to come after it. But I don't know
Yeah.
I don't know who I would have been or what would have happened if I didn't go to Wheaton to experience that process and having guys like intentionally invest in me, not just guys who were my friends. I mean, all those guys became my friends to varying degrees. Obviously, like we have some guys we're closer with, and vice versa. But like the seniors, like took time to invest in you. I remember Nate Gers was my small group leader our freshman year, and he was very intentional about making sure we met once a week, and we went about it. We read the scriptures. Burt McJunkin was he he was a graduate student that came to play Wheaton. Obviously, you know who Burt is, but he was like super intentional and vulnerable with our small group. And I, looking back, I couldn't tell you what we read or what we studied, but I could tell you like these men showed me things that were important to being a Christian man about like, hey, being committed, making sure we do what we need to do. Like, if we can only meet at 7 a.m. for a small group, because that's when everyone's available, that's what we're going to do. We're not going to push it off or just go to
Hmm.
dinner and do it then and call it a day where we eat and just do like the bare minimum. Like, we're going to be intentional. So, and then them showing the vulnerability to like, hey, these are things I struggle with as a 21-year-old senior. I know you're not alone in some of the things that you struggle
Hmm.
with. Let me help you to the best of my ability. Let me pray for you. Let me walk alongside you. And then those were things that I had to learn and continue to do as I became to grow and mature as a man at Wheaton football.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about that sort of program buy-in being essential. I think you're kind of hinting at already that maybe vulnerability is a big part of that buy-in. How else would you kind of describe that? And do you think being bought into the program is something that most of the guys are able to do, or what do you think that's like? Because without that buy-in, I mean, you could go to an awesome Christian school like Wheaton and still have a very maybe not secular experience, but one where you don't transform your life in the way that you could.
I think a lot of guys are really bought in. I'd say more so, especially by the time they get to their senior year. And buy-in is different. Buy-in isn't necessarily like, oh, I become this animal on the field. Buy-in is I go to. We always talk about like do the right thing the right way. That's what buy-in is to me. Like going to church, making time for the Lord. Like not in a legalistic way, but just in time of like, hey, like I'm bought into doing what's asked of me and doing it the right way. And that's we talk about it like in all things, like from an athletic perspective, like, hey, I'm gonna get up. Uh, we're supposed to be there 5 minutes early. I'm gonna be there 5 minutes early. I'm gonna be ready to go. I'm ready to work out. I'm gonna follow the percentages. I'm gonna work my tail off to get as good as I can. And
Hmm.
then also like, hey, like we're gonna read the scripture. We're doing this for a small group. Having accountability partners and just kind of um, trying to take it for all it is and showing up to those things. I think vulnerability is a big part of it because of like vulnerability and humility are a big part of it just to accept like, hey, I need this. I need to grow. I need to grow as an athlete. I need to grow as a man. I need to do what's asked of me. And I know that the guys around me are going to do it and that are asked the same things are going to do it. I need to do it because they're going to do it and it's the right thing to do. So I think that most of the guys are bought in, especially anyone that's been in Wheaton football for that spends 4 years in there. I think it's really hard to be around that culture in the program and not get bought in.
Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing is that program buy-in is kind of the little things, right? Like it kind of builds. It's not like a one-time decision to be bought in. It's like making just little deposits every single time. Like every day you wake up on time and you get to your lift on time, and then you do one good rep and you do another good rep, and you connect with one player and hold him accountable, and you connect with another player and you're vulnerable. And I think over the course of 4 years, just the way the little things can change your life is unbelievable. One of my favorite sayings is that this is more of a weight room saying, but it very much applies to life. Maybe the weight room is just the first place I ever heard it, but everyone overestimates what they can do in a day and underestimates what they can do in a year. I just think that's a really helpful saying that's given me a lot of perspective on things I'm working towards. So then getting back into more the football side of things, like on the field, performance side of things, I know in my own experience, there was a lot of good and a lot of bad as far as how actually playing football shaped me as a Christian man. And ultimately, God's going to redeem that. And in hindsight, He's using a lot of maybe the bad for good now, for my good, and maybe the good of anyone who listens to this. But would you say, just your on the field experience, grinding hard and trying to be the best football player you could, would you say there's kind of a good, bad, and ugly the way that kind of shaped you as a man?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like football's a very intense emotional game,
Hmm.
and I'm already a pretty fiery emotional person in a lot of things, a lot of times. And there's definitely times where on the field I would lose control of my emotions and like let my tongue slip or just, um, especially like the things I'd say in my head when I get frustrated
Hmm.
at myself. Definitely would like tear myself down. Obviously, with athletics, I feel like we always are going to be struggling with comparison.
Yep.
So those are things that I struggled with. I think the good was like I just learned so that you have to work really, really hard all the time and continue to grow and develop. I also think I learned like slowly over the course of time to put my identity less and less in football. I mean, I always struggled with that. I think that's not a unique struggle to me. I think that's
Hmm.
a struggle for most guys who compete at a high level athletically.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I definitely thought there was some good, like you said, good, bad, the ugly. Um, but the good I think is that like the little things talked about, like the buy-in on the little things with athletics was like the idea of the discipline, and dedication that's needed to be successful as an athlete is the same as it takes for faith. Um,
Hmm.
Wyatt Lee, who was a guy we played with, who coaches at Wheaton now, so we worked together. He told me once. I mean, he probably doesn't really remember this. This was after our season got canceled during COVID, but I was just talking to Wyatt because I tried to just kind of connect with all those guys because during that when the season first got canceled, I was all thinking about myself and how this I got screwed and I lost a season that I was going to play. But then I was like, what about those guys who are going to be seniors? So I tried to like not be selfish and see how they were doing. But I connected with Wyatt and he
Hmm.
told me, yeah, like really football is just like spiritual like disciplines. He's like, you have to go like getting up and like reading the Bible and doing those things. Like even when you don't want to, it's like you need to do it. Same way with like when you're lifting. There's gonna be days where you go in and it's gonna feel great and you're gonna PR. You're gonna have a ton of fun like lifting and wanting to do it. He goes, and those are awesome, but that's not how it always feels. But oftentimes it's those workouts that you don't want to do or you don't want to go in, but you go in and you do it regardless. That are really what makes you better over time. Not just the times when you feel good. And the same about like your faith, like choosing to read your scripture and pray and do those things, even when you're not necessarily feeling it, is going to be super important for your development, more so than just doing it when it feels like a good time and it feels right to do it.
Yeah, I remember probably for the first 3 or maybe even 4 years of my Wheaton experience, I could not believe that guys got up instead of at 5:30 a.m. for their 6 a.m. lift at 5 a.m. so that they could make sure to read their Bible and have spiritual time before the lift. I always thought that I could just do it afterwards and get an extra half hour of sleep and it would be just as valuable. But now as I've matured a little bit more and maybe towards the end of my Wheaton experience, I realized that it's really about priority and giving God the first part of your day. And it just kind of completely shifts the frame of mind for your day, right? To just dedicate it to the Lord
And
right from the very beginning.
yeah, and I would say like not like a like you said, like not like a legalistic way. Like there's nothing wrong with doing it after.
Sure.
But what some of my experience was, it gets very easy to continue to push when after
Yep.
is. That was what I struggled with. Was like, oh, there's so much time in the day. Like I can do it this time. I can do it that. And it's like I can sleep an extra half hour. Like you said. But then it's like, okay, how often would I do that? And then proceed to like go eat breakfast and go straight to my
Yep.
scripture. No, how often would I go just sit dilly dally at breakfast, talking to guys, hanging out on my phone, like just doing nothing productive until class
Hmm.
was way more common.
Well, and then you push it off until a lot of times it ends up being the last thing you do before bed, and then which part of your day exactly did that inform? Like, it's not
Hmm.
going to be nearly as valuable if,
Yeah.
not that you shouldn't read your Bible before bed, but you're not really too much in control of your thought life while you sleep, or not nearly as much as
Hmm.
how you could be impacting your thought life and others around you during the day with scripture being the foundation of the day. Yeah, just jumping back, I think it's funny your comment about Wyatt just saying a little thing to you that he probably doesn't remember. I've had that thought a lot of times recently about how there's certain things that coaches said that have just stuck in my mind and like truly changed my life are probably just like these kind of offhand comments that they don't even remember making. And I think that just points to how much power there is in our words and just, being careful with our speech and kind of always being ready to encourage, right? Because you don't know that might carry someone through maybe potentially even the rest of their life. And I just think it's cool to think that you have such a platform for that now with coaching. There's just so many guys you're probably pouring into that you don't even realize the extent of that. So then would you say during your time at Wheaton, kind of what sport was to you eventually was able to shift in your mind? Or was that something you feel like you struggled with all the way through the end?
Yeah, I definitely struggled with it all the way to the end, but I definitely like I said, like it grew in my ability to balance that. I think the biggest thing for me, and probably the time that I turned the most to the Lord and kind of like started maturing in my faith was during COVID. I kind of talked about how I had reached out to some of the seniors and all that during that time, but I just remember like being so mad and angry
Hmm.
at everything, and this was at a point where I would like read my Bible very sparingly,
Hmm.
and like just kind of like I'd read it for my small group and like would do it every once in a while. Like just was kind of like, oh, I'm a Christian. I do this every once in a while. I read my Bible. But I was just so angry and frustrated that our season was canceled and all these things were going terrible, and
Yeah.
that I had to go home early, and I just was mad. And then for some reason, I remember sitting in my basement in my dad's office down there, and I just opened my Bible for some reason and started reading. Was taking some notes and just felt at peace.
Hmm.
Um, and finally was like, okay, this is what it should be. And I got really like, that's really when I started like, reading my Bible, taking like journaling, taking notes, trying to be intentional with other people. Um, and then that was probably the most formative
Hmm.
time. Going into my sophomore year after what I had thought was like the worst thing that could happen, proceeded to be one of the best things where I grew a ton. And it was cool to experience that because a lot of my friends were experiencing a lot of similar growth.
Hmm.
Like we're parallel, and then we kind of converged at this at
Hmm.
Wheaton. Like Phil Churchill kind of was just like, I think the catalyst was different for him, but he ended up just starting to like he started maturing and growing a ton in his faith. Uh, and then it kind of like snowballed being around other guys who were maturing a ton, like Phil, Noah, Kyle, Gio, like Caleb. Like I started to spend a ton of time with those guys, and we just talked about scriptures a lot, and would have deep conversations, like playing board games and things would just like start up, and it was super transformative. And I also got really involved at Gospel Life, which is now like was Crossroads at the time. Um, and that was super like great experience for me to kind of have my own church home, being surrounded by other guys that were involved in the church and being called to and challenged to serve in a more of a capacity than I'd ever done before.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about really points to God's ways being unsearchable, and I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. For context, in 2019 when we were freshmen, we felt we had an awesome season, and we felt very strongly that we were the best team in the country because we, in the regular season, had beaten North Central, who ultimately ended up winning the national championship. Meanwhile, we lost in the quarterfinals to St. John's on a missed extra point, which still painful to think about to this day. But then after that, we were bringing back essentially that entire roster, and I think some analysts agreed. We felt like we deserved to be national champions that year. So we felt like when COVID happened, our supposedly rightful national championship ring was taken away by that. But then just to tie it back into what you're saying, how much more wonderful is it that God used that time to strengthen, your love for Scripture and like really finally rooting your identity in Him and giving you lifelong friends through that extra free time we had. I just think God obviously redeemed that, and it would be nice to have these awesome lifelong friendships and focus on God and be national champions. But
Yeah.
ultimately, God's ways are unsearchable, and it's a privilege anytime He kind of does pull back the curtain a little bit and give us a look at the way He's orchestrated things in our lives. But I just think it's really cool to hear your testimony about how a time when we felt truly robbed of something that we quote unquote deserved, that was ultimately redeemed. And another thing I think of is Coach Swider always saying, we deserve hell and we get heaven. And just like the way that puts things into perspective for me, like we deserved to have a football season that year. We deserved to play 10 games, play 15 games, win a national championship. Like, no, we didn't deserve any of that. Anything we do get is purely by the grace of God, right?
Yeah.
So then after Wheaton, you had a fairly successful career there. I think you were a fantastic football player, one of my least favorite people to go against in practice. You had the opportunity to go play some pro football, but maybe ultimately didn't work out to the way you would have desired, and a lot of that stemmed from an injury that you sustained our last game of our 5th year against Whitewater. And I just think this is an interesting story. We were a little weak on our interior D line that year. I can say that because I was one of them. And to try and stop the run better, Paul, who was our starting left guard, right, right next to Aiden, was asked to take some nose reps on defense and was willing to sacrifice and go in there and kind of play both ways in our last game, which we didn't know was going to be our last game at the time. But Paul was willing to do that for our team, very self-sacrificial. And one of the very last plays of the game, he ended up having a foot injury that while he's playing defense, so ultimately it probably would not have happened otherwise. And then shortly after that game, Paul went to try and go start up his pro football journey, and I think that ended up being a big hindrance in that journey. So how do you kind of work through that? What's that been like?
Yeah, it was definitely a struggle. And like, it's weird to talk about because I don't really know what it would have happened if I did get hurt. And like, obviously I did get hurt. So it's like hard to project and have these certain thoughts and feelings. But I tried to, like, I had been signed up for some bowl games. Couldn't like get the money back I had like already bought flights and things like that. So those trips were all planned, and I was like, well, I might as well we'll try to go. And I just couldn't like really do anything. I couldn't run. I couldn't move. I couldn't really play football, and I kind of lost all the ability I had to play. Like I had finished my career, like I didn't miss any plays as a football player.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge gift. Like I went out there, we had like 2 more offensive snaps after I got hurt defensively to try to like make something happen. And I finished those, but I mean playing 2 snaps and they weren't good snaps. I mean I got in the way and passed pro and kind of got bullied, but didn't like lose and was not gonna step off the field. Missed that last chance to go with my brothers.
Yeah.
I do thank the Lord for that aspect of my injury because I could have got hurt at any point. I could have got hurt and missed 5 games my senior year and got hurt like right after the redshirt window and played like half of my last season and just been done for.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been shame. That would have been like a shame. Like it really stunk. That could have happened. So I was thankful that it didn't. Obviously. But going back to like the pro journey, it was like so then I was playing these bowl games. I couldn't really move and like plant and push and like make the blocks or get displacement or like I could kind of like I could take my first like step and be where I need to be and get in like relationship and then like just had no power and couldn't like redirect very well. So like I remember one of the bowl games I was talking to one of the scouts. I was like am I like was anything happening? Like am I doing anything better or worse? He's like, yep, it's like kind of hard to like evaluate you. He's like, you get to the right spots, but then you just like can't really do anything, can't really move. Like I couldn't run. I was taking a bunch of tape, was taking an absurd amount of painkillers and trying to do different creams, taping my foot in all kinds of ways. And I probably should have just not played in those from a recovery perspective. So that was really, really hard. And they were like, yeah, like, can't really evaluate you. And I was like, coming from a smaller Division III school. So, like, my game film, I thought the game film looked really good, but, like, big picture, I'm going against guys who are not going to be the competition that they want to evaluate. This is my chance to go against those guys, and just couldn't perform. And that was really unfortunate. So, kind of those opportunities are like, there were guys there who, like, don't want to say, like, I know I'm better than, but, like, I felt very confident that I was on their level or would be able to outperform them or block these certain guys that got chances to play in the NFL or did play in the NFL to varying degrees. So it would have been, I feel like if I would have been healthy, maybe that could have been an opportunity for me. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't sit here on this side of it and be like, wow, I would have made it to got an NFL minicamp invite and made a team and be in the NFL right now. Like, I don't know. There's a very high likelihood that if I would have been able to do the peak of what I thought I was, that I could have made a minicamp and got cut. And that what if kind of stings for me because it would have been really cool. Because it would have been like, I felt like that would have been a door if that was the final chapter that felt right.
Sure.
To know like, hey, I got here and I didn't have it, and that's okay. Not everyone can play in the NFL. Just to get to where I was already like farther than most are going to make it.
Yeah.
The Lord had blessed me in a lot of ways. So then I ended up getting in contact with one of the indoor teams, and I was like, yeah, I'll go play this year. Played for the Steelers. Coach Ross gave me a chance. They had a really good season and team prior to my showing up there. So I went to explore that, and my foot was just not healthy. I think the first time I ran like at all was a week before I showed up, and the first time I tried to sprint was our conditioning test when I got there. So I really struggled with that, and it was super painful. We practiced in the morning, so I would try to get up at like 5 or 4:30 to like try to like massage my foot with a massage gun and like roll it out on a lacrosse ball. And I tried to use like icy hot with like a butter knife to grasp in my own foot. And then I would like try to tape it up in certain ways to arch support. And then I would have them like tape my ankle and spat it to try to practice. And I really just didn't feel like I was myself that whole year. And it probably like I didn't play to the level I wanted to. Part of it was because I was hurt and I kind of rushed back. And I probably should have just taken like a year off. But like I said, I was so like, feel like this is like the odd time now or never.
Sure.
So I really struggled with that, and then it was really hard like to not be able to do the things or play the way I felt like I knew I wanted to or could if I was healthy. So that was definitely another struggle. And then played for them for a year. Then I went to Iowa this past year and played there, and that was going pretty good. I was playing center for the first time. Felt like I was starting to figure it out. Then I had a back injury this year, and that was another difficult too, where I ended up not even for probably the last 5 games. I don't think I didn't practice like at all, and would just play in the games, and then try to rehab the whole week. And and like my back is still kind of like tight and resonating with some, or dealing with some like resonating pain and stuff now from that, and definitely carried over after the season. So. This was a new experience for me because I had never really gotten hurt in my entire, other than like the seizure thing, which is different. Well, it didn't affect my physical abilities. I had never gotten hurt in my entire high school career or college career up until like that last like foot thing. I mean, I have like the stuff that happens playing football, like my shoulders hurt, I get tendonitis, back pain, elbows,
Just
but
normal stuff.
just the stuff that anyone that's played football has dealt with.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. How do you ultimately wrestle with that? Like, I mean, I know we kind of maybe struggle sometimes talking the what ifs of like, oh, what if we'd won that game? What if we'd won this game? What if we'd made that kick or whatever? But how do you wrestle through those what ifs of, worrying that the chapter didn't end the right way? You didn't have the opportunity to really prove yourself. What's it like working through that?
Yeah, it's hard, but I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like I couldn't control anything after, like, or I should say, like, it was out of my control. So, like, it sucked, but I didn't feel like, I don't know, there was more peace with it. I think for me, it was ultimately that I was just happy that I got to experience my Wheaton football career to the fullest. So, like, when I looked at it in that lens, it gave me gratitude. I think part of the what ifs is like, they would be really cool, but like, there's still a very high likelihood that I would have just ended up doing what I did or just concentrating to coaching after if I got cut from the minicamp.
Yeah.
Because like I don't necessarily know if I really was an NFL caliber offensive lineman.
Yeah.
So I think the what ifs are, and part of it might be like obviously if I had gotten a chance to win it, like I would have been like I'm making the team. Like that's how you have to go about it.
Hmm.
But I think part of it on this side is just knowing like the Lord had a purpose for it. And maybe it was to I don't really know what it is entirely at this
Hmm.
point. Maybe it was just to humble me, to make it so like that wasn't my entire identity.
Yeah.
Was to get a taste of the NFL and then try to like put everything on hold just for that.
Yep.
So I don't necessarily know what could have happened or what would have happened, but I'm just thankful that I got to have my full week experience with my best friends, and then I got to still play football after. Um, and for my like, I would have loved to play in the NFL and have like a experience like that. But I think the main thing for me was I just wanted to play. I just love football. I'm playing
Sure.
football. So then I still got to do some of that longer than most people have. So I'm grateful for that. Because it never would have been about like the money and trying to like make the NFL because I wanted to make a ton of money. Like if that had happened, it would have been like cool. But like you know me, like I'm not a very financial
Hmm.
motivated person. Like
Yep.
I would have just wanted to play more football. Like if I could have gone and played in the NFL and made 50 grand a year, I would have gladly done that
Sure.
just to play
Me
football.
too. That'd be fun. Um, yeah, honestly, I think the what if game is a dangerous one, and maybe sometimes a game that the enemy wants us to play, right? We can just kind of, when we're worried about thinking what if all the time, it distracts us from the moment and the good that has happened and the good that we can do. I was reading this morning about how when we get so caught up on things we feel like we deserved, accolades and accomplishments, maybe that we even did deserve and didn't receive, it just sucks all joy out of it. It's really not worth spending time on because when you're distracted by ways that you weren't recognized, then it distracts from the good of the work you did and what you did actually accomplish. And so ultimately now I feel like you feel that your pro football career is probably winding down, and has that been kind of a clear message from the Lord in your mind, or is that just a logical decision you've made, and do you think it would ultimately be glorifying to him to keep going?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be unglorifying if I kept playing or more glorifying if I did. I think it
Okay.
would have been more like I felt like it was like it's very much like a either one is like fine. I don't
Yeah.
feel like called to be like, hey, like you can't keep playing like this window's closed. But I also don't feel like you need to keep playing like there's something out there for you connected to football that I need you to do. Um, so I just feel like yeah, and like you said, like the what if game is dangerous because I'm not looking at like what if I play one more year? Am I gonna get that call up? Like
Hmm.
I'm not playing that like and like the if I had made it to those mini camps, like it could have been a different experience. I might have never met some of the people I met playing Indian football.
Sure.
Like I've met really good people, and people that I think I will stay in touch with while
Hmm.
actually we're playing. But um, like I said, like the what if is dangerous. I just feel like part of it is logical. If my body like it's kind of started to get banged up, um, so I don't know what I do with all that again.
Yeah.
But that's not like the only reason. I think is like I love what I'm doing with the coaching perspective. I want to be around those guys and I want to be able to do that properly. Now, like for the guys I work with and for the program that has given me so much, and for the guys that I'm coaching now. So, and I think that if I go play again, that'll kind of take away from it. And just I
Hmm.
have some like weddings and stuff that are going to be coming up and things like that that are. It's more important to me to be there with some of my those relationships and people in my life to do that instead of to be playing a game that I just because I can still do it.
Yeah. And I think what I'm able to trace through that from high school to Wheaton to pro opportunities is just that, the Lord gave you the ability to not have football on that pedestal anymore, right? I mean, if it was still your number one thing, I'm Paul Fay football player, then I don't know how you could ever stop chasing that dream. And obviously, injuries have been a part of that, and maybe that was a sign from God to be done, or maybe it just happened. I mean, I hate to over spiritualize it, but
Yeah.
obviously his hand is in everything that happens to us. So then, yeah, you said you met some awesome people in your time playing some pro ball. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that transition was like going from a place like Wheaton College out into the pro football world, where obviously, everyone's main focus is not keeping Christ at the center, but winning games and trying to play at the highest level.
Yeah, there was definitely different. It was very different than Wheaton with that regard, and it was very different. Like the guys I was around and the way like they prioritized things in their lives and what they valued. Not to say that anyone that I played with was like, wow, this guy's like a bad person, or I didn't enjoy spending time with them. But it was just different, like their experiences, what they had, what they valued, and kind of their approach to football. And like, don't get me wrong, I took it very seriously.
Hmm.
All those guys did, and they worked super hard. I met a bunch of guys who were super talented, great football players, and have some degree of faith or some connection to the Lord in some way. Uh, but like their colleges and their experiences and what it looks like for them or their maturity and just kind of their walks were very different or in different spots. And it just part of it I felt like was because of my experiences with Wheaton. For me, part of it was learning to like, hey, like things that felt very wrong at Wheaton were not necessarily wrong because they're sinful, like, but just because like I had like agreed like that I wasn't going to do it, like
Sure.
going to like a bar to hang out with like teammates or something like that. Like at Wheaton, that was not something we did or something that was like I want to say like allowed, but not necessarily because like it was like drinking alcohol like is sinful the second it touches your lips, but because we had signed a covenant saying we weren't
Sure.
going to.
Hmm.
And to me like that was important to me, like trying to keep my word. But like, and one of the things like when I was in Quad Cities was one of our contracts, one of our sponsors was like this bar. So after all of our games, we went to this like bar for like their after party. We had to make like appearances, part of our contracts. So I would go, and I remember being kind of uncomfortable at first, but then eventually kind of just learned like it's okay to like spend time with my teammates and learn how to just like be a part of it. But I don't need to necessarily just do something because they're doing it. But like it's okay to just to be here and be with them and
Hmm.
talk and just kind of experience that. And like I think that ability to learning how to do that, once I learned kind of how to like walk, like kind of balance it better, allowed me to build more relationships and friendships. But it was definitely unique, and I really appreciate my teammates both in Iowa and in the Quad Cities because I never really felt like pressured or people were like against my values or what I
Sure.
wanted to do. I actually felt pretty encouraged. I felt like guys respected it, even if they didn't at all have the same like kind of lifestyle as me. Um, but they were always like encouraging and were like, yeah, like I totally respect that. Like you're waiting till marriage, and things like that.
Hmm.
So that was unique. Like Darion Jackson gave me the nickname Pastor Fay when we were in Quad Cities, which I would not have viewed myself as a pastoral type ever, but just kind of like, and to me, like when I thought I was struggling with things, it was kind of encouraging to know like that was still something that they saw in me,
Hmm.
and I spoke enough about it and would bring it up. Would try to have conversations that it was they knew that was part of who I was, and they knew like I wanted to go to church and I valued my faith. And both of the teams I went to, one of the questions I asked before I signed was like, "Are Sundays going to be like possibilities for me to go to church?" And
Hmm.
both of the times they were like, "Yeah, like as long as we're not like traveling," which is totally realistic and fair, something
Hmm.
I understood. Um, so by no means was I perfect in the transition socially, and I struggled with some like trying to balance that and trying to learn
Yeah.
because it kind of got thrown into just such a different culture. Because it was different than Wheaton, but I definitely learned how to like just live around those guys and build friendships with guys who I would have never had a chance to or never connected with otherwise, and like just enjoy spending time with them. And they also taught me a lot about different things and just like different perspectives on
Hmm.
life and their experiences. So I really enjoyed that part of it, and the people were definitely the best thing in both of those experiences.
Cool. That's awesome to hear. Yeah, so it sounds like, I mean, a lot of people refer to Wheaton or a school like Wheaton as kind of a bubble, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you kind of got launched out of that bubble, and then you kind of had opportunity either, to have these stumbling blocks or to be strengthened in your faith. And it sounds like you ended up being able to navigate that very well. So as you were able to form those relationships, I think, taking the time to get to know people and ask good questions and, you know, learn about their values and their upbringing, who they are, is kind of our best evangelistic approach and really just best way to care for people in general. But did you find that as, you had conversations with guys, you were able to share your faith in a meaningful way that changed lives or just maybe planted a seed, or what was that like?
I think there's more like seed planting and good conversations, but I wouldn't say like anyone like had like a drastic life change or anything.
Sure.
I mean, I had teammates go to church with me at different points in
Cool.
time, but nothing like. I think like a funny story about that is one time on Saturday night after a game, we went downtown. Like they wanted to go to the bar and all that stuff, and I was like, I'm not gonna like just go sit in my room and be antisocial.
Hmm.
So I went on, like I hung out with them. And like we were out later than I wanted to because I wanted to go to church in the morning and things like that. And I was like, yeah, like I'm going to go to church in the morning if anyone wants to come. And we went. I went in the morning when my teammates went with me, and he was like, yeah, he's like I only really came because like this is something you want to do, and you did what we wanted
Wow,
to do like last night. So I was like, huh.
it's awesome. Yeah, I think that points to. I mean, a lot of these guys are kind of fresh out of college, right?
Hmm.
I think that points to college football in general makes good guys or has the opportunity to, right? Just
Hmm.
playing sports and learning to sacrifice for your brothers. I think I see that in that
Yeah,
story.
and I mean, all those guys are fresh out, and I mean they worked super hard, and like they're trying to all like chase better opportunities for themselves. Like I think of guys that had families and were definitely making sacrifices and like dealing with difficulties, like, but they proceeded to make the try or doing this because they think this is going to be the best thing for them and their family. Because if they go play, they can earn another opportunity at a bigger level. So like, I saw some guys like struggling with things like that and try to help like love them, but like I yeah, like you said, like I think whether their lifestyles are different, like not no, those guys wouldn't have been like Wheaton football players, like in the bubble that we kind of were in, and they wouldn't have like necessarily like enjoyed it or loved it, but
Sure.
like they still knew the values of hard work and like cared about their teammates and like yeah, they like did the things that a lot of what we had learned and valued from an athletic perspective. They were about the same things, like working hard and trying to care for and support your teammates and having each other's backs, and whatever that looked like, whether that was on the field or off the field.
Yeah, and obviously that is, the hope of participating in college athletics is that you're going to build skills and disciplines that will help set a foundation for the rest of your life. So it's cool to hear just some testimony about how that happens, not only at Wheaton, which obviously I know in my head, but it's just cool to hear a story of that in practice. So you transitioned from Wheaton, made some good friends, playing a little bit of pro ball, and that whole time you're also coaching at Wheaton. So what kind of is it that drew you back into the program at Wheaton, and yeah, what drives you to want to continue to coach there?
Yeah, I think a big part is like I still do love the game of football just as a game.
Hmm.
That's part of why I played it. It's part of why I think I connected with my teammates there was despite like trying to put my identity in Christ, like I love football, and there's nothing wrong with loving football
Hmm.
as the sport. It becomes your problem when it becomes your idol, but like to love it and to want to be your best and to do all those things the right way, there's nothing wrong with that. Trying
Yep.
to be excellent there. Uh, but like, so I love football and I wanted to be around it still. And I think Coach Scott and the other coaches that we are great coaches. Um, so it was great to like get to go learn from them, but also go into back to a program that has given me so much and has blessed me in so many ways. Being a part of that was super appealing to me, and then also just the ability to go to learn from guys who I think are really good at their job, but also have a Christian value. Because I don't know if I'll stay at Wheaton for who knows how long.
Hmm.
Like I have no plans of leaving at any time soon, like this moment. But like the Lord could call me into something different, or there could be other opportunities that come up in my future that are coaching. So like
Hmm.
to learn what it looks like to coach as a Christian man was important to me. And I'd always seen it modeled to me as a player, but to see like the inner workings of it, and like the way that Coach Scott, as the head coach there, is telling guys to, hey, go home early today. This is the off season. Go spend time with your families. Thursday nights, he wants us guys to get out early to go spend time with like their significant others, their families, because it's a very demanding job,
Hmm.
especially in the season. when like we have time off on Sundays so we can go to church, and things like that. So like it's super demanding, super hard, but to see like the way that a program and the coaches like still want to value their families first and foremost and do the things that the Lord calls them to, besides their jobs at a very high level and stay faithful. It is great to see. Like, and like the guys that I work with, they're just very good at that. And they're disciplined and they do a great job of that. And it's been great to see like firsthand watching like Coach Scott, Coach Swider, Coach Howe, Coach Lee, like all those guys who are like older that I saw as coaches. Now that when I was a player, and I kind of work with them and see the inner workings of how they do such a demanding job while still being fathers and husbands was important, and I think is probably more valuable than anything I'll learn from just a pure X's and O's perspective.
Yes, so let's talk about that a little bit more. As a player at Wheaton, I oftentimes was tempted and fell for the idea of, holding the idea of potentially winning a national championship over my identity in Christ. And so now, that was a struggle as a player, and now that's literally your job. Is your performance is how much am I helping this team win on the field? So as a program that obviously hasn't yet, but aspires to be national champions, thinks they can be the best team in the nation at their level. What are you guys as a coaching staff doing to keep Christ at the center?
Yeah, I mean, we still, like Coach Pelt says, all the spiritual, like WFMP, all those things that we continue to do, the small groups, all of that. I mean, we still are evaluating that from a recruiting perspective, trying to get guys in who are going to value, push the small groups. As like for the running backs this year, when I was coaching them, I tried to pray at the beginning of every meeting. Now, I was not very good at that. Oftentimes, I ended up praying at the end, but like I would pray or ask one of them to pray. So like that is something that I did. I know other positions are like memorizing scripture. But yeah, I think like it's all the little things the right way, and we just continue to do that. It's going to be investment over time. But like we talk about it, like if all we offer these guys is football, and first of all, we wouldn't be the appealing program we are, the young men, if all we had to offer was football. And now on the flip side, like if we didn't have a good football program, we also wouldn't be appealing to the young men coming out of high school that we want to bring in. But I think the big thing is like we all want to pursue excellence on the field, but we don't think we need to compromise spiritually to do that.
Yeah.
And it's also like if all these guys leave with is a national championship trophy, we failed our job as coaches. So not to say we don't want to be the best and push towards that, but like we've lost the sight of what Wheaton College and Wheaton football stands for Christ and His kingdom if we sell out to win a national title in a sense. So,
yeah. And I think pursuing excellence on the field and excellence in football is ultimately a metaphor for things that are more important than that, right? Mm-hmm. Coach Scott would always say that football is a microcosm of life, and I maybe would question your Christian walk even if you were not taking football seriously. I think that's a commitment you've made to your brothers, right? And it's the right thing to take that very seriously and pursue excellence in all areas of your life.
Which is definitely something that I struggle with. I felt very convicted of that when we were in college because of the pursuit of academic excellence. Because that was something I struggled with about like, well, I often want to do the right thing the right way all the time. Am I doing that academically? Which I oftentimes was not. Like I did good academically, but was it necessarily my best? No.
Yep.
And like would I have been content to do well football wise, but not my best? Like no, I wouldn't have. So like we talk about doing it in all things and like making it a habit of your life. Like whatever. Like for me, like Colossians 3:23 was always like the super like important verse. Like I know it's not like a unique verse to me that like no one has known, but like whatever you do it as if serving the Lord, not human masters. It's like, am I doing that with my academics, athletics, like spiritual, like the little things that you don't want to do? There's more to it than just football. Like that was something that I thought was
well, and I think it's funny you bring up academics. I mean, I struggled there a little bit, but for me, it was even with the relational side. I remember I kind of had a little bit of an identity crisis going into the off season before our fifth year with Coach Nightingale, our defensive coordinator at the time, where I was like, Coach, am I really a hard worker? Like, I want to get up at 5:30 a.m. and come to this run and puke. Like I find that enjoyable personally. So like I always define myself as a hard worker and I'm willing to sacrifice. But to me, it's not hard work. It's not a sacrifice because like I'm desiring to do those things anyway. So like how can I really prove I'm all in for this program? How can I sacrifice for guys? And Coach Nightingale challenged me that I needed to get outside of myself more, and I was just not stewarding my free time well, and that I needed to get to know guys better. And that was an awesome challenge for me because over my 5th year, I found a lot less football success than I had anticipated, and I had the best year of my life. Like it was so fun getting to know guys, getting to know younger guys, and really pour into them, and that really showed me that that's what the program's all about. And now, I think I just value relationships so much more now, and that's what makes me want to do things like this and have this conversation with you, Paul. So yeah, just pursuing excellence in all areas of life, an awesome thing that sports can teach us. Um, yeah, so I think we've had awesome conversation. I don't want to run too long. Kind of want to wrap things up with some closing segments here that will help tie things in a nice, neat little bow for us. For our first thing here, I kind of have a hypothetical for you, and you can feel free to close your eyes and imagine with me, or not. It's up to you.
Are you gonna close your eyes?
Yeah, I can close my eyes. We can both close your eyes.
I'm gonna keep
I'm
my
trusting you now. Okay, so just imagine you are, for whatever reason, you found this guy really early in his football career. Maybe when he was a freshman. I don't know what the rules are on when you can contact people, but you've been recruiting the number one football recruit in the entire nation throughout the majority of his high school football career. You found him early, and you didn't know he was going to explode onto the scene the way he has. But now he is in his senior year. He's still making a decision about where to play, and he's received opportunities from the likes of Alabama, Miami, USC, whatever, Texas Tech, whatever big successful football programs you can think of that are just throwing millions of dollars of NIL money at him. But he still has Wheaton on his list, and he is making his decision tomorrow. And you still have his interest, and you have one final phone call with him. And just imagine with me, I know it might be hard, but you truly do value his life as a young Christian man and his walk much, much more highly than getting him to come play football at Wheaton, as awesome as that would be. You have just a few minutes here, the opportunity to give him one final piece of advice before he makes so far the biggest decision of his life. What do you decide to say to this young man?
I mean, that is tough. I would tell him first and foremost that like whatever decision you make sure that it has been like drenched in prayer and what you decide to do. Because I think like I tell recruits all the time to pray about it, regardless of if they're gonna deciding between us and another D3 school or deciding between us and who would be Alabama or Texas A&M or whatever it might be. I'd say pray about it. Have confidence in the decision that the Lord is calling you to do it. Ask yourself like, who do I want to be when football's all said and done? I would tell him that if you are a good enough football player and that the Lord wants you to play in the NFL, like that'll happen regardless of where you go.
Sure.
Like you will continue to be pushed and developed as an athlete here at Wheaton, the same as you would anywhere else. Now it might to different facilities, we might not have the nutritionists and all the stuff that they have, but like we're going to develop you in all the ways that we've said in the whole recruiting process. But I would tell him pray about it, and if the Lord has you come into Wheaton, the Lord has you come into Wheaton, and if He has you going somewhere else, like just make sure that you are comfortable, confident with your decision, and not just go into the biggest price dollar wise. Like make sure you're making the right decision for you as a young man, because at the end of the day, all the money's going to fade, everything's going to fade, except who you are and the relationship you have with Christ. So I would hammer that home, and then I would just tell him to pray. Like I'd pray over him and with him, and I would tell him to once he knows, so he can call me. And it's at that point, if he says he's going to Wheaton, I probably would do cartwheels and be all excited. And he tells me he's going somewhere else, I would just tell him that if he feels called back, to not hesitate to reach out again. Yeah, that would kind of how I would do it.
Yeah, I love that. It felt like a very real recruiting pitch. I've heard you recruit a little bit, but yeah, I think it can all be summed up in drenched in prayer. I love that singular line. drench it in prayer. That's an awesome encouragement. On a similar note, we're going to close with, what would you say to the Christian athlete pursuing excellence, the Christian athlete who's trying to play at their absolute best, their highest ability level? What is your first one piece of caution about that journey? And then second, what is your big encouragement about that and how awesome it can be?
Yeah, my main thing would be regardless is put your identity in Christ.
Mm,
That's what like I've told all the running backs this year. Regardless of if you're a scout team guy or the starting running back or whatever, like put your identity in Christ, because very very few guys are ever going to have the athletic career to the goal and the extent that they want. I mean,
hmm
look at guys like Josh Allen, who are some of the best in the world at what they do. Like I'm sure there's things that he hasn't accomplished that he wants to accomplish and all those things. Like there's always going to be something more. Like Tom Brady's going to look back and be like, I wish I would have won those Super Bowls I lost to like the Giants or to the Eagles and things like that. Like
Yep.
there's always going to be something more from an athletic perspective. Like, no one's going to have a perfect career or accomplish everything they've ever wanted, but doesn't mean it's wrong to pursue excellence. But make sure your identity's in Christ first and foremost.
Mm,
And now it's obviously easier said than done, but I don't think you can be reminded of that enough as an athlete. And I would
yeah.
also say, as the thing about that is like the Lord is like when you're a good athlete. I think that sometimes I've struggled with it, or like not to put myself in like a great athlete category, like definitely nothing compared to those guys I just mentioned. Uh, but the idea that like being good is not bad. Like the Lord has given you
Hmm.
gifts, like, and it honestly it's wrong to not be your best,
Yeah.
and to squander the gifts that the Lord has given you. If I went to Wheaton and I was capable of being a 3 year starter and getting accolades and playing in the biggest games, and I proceeded to go to Wheaton and I kind of just slacked off and get to play in my senior year and was just kind of like an average player, like I did not glorify God with how I went about that
Mm,
process. And I think the best thing to do is like whatever you're doing, if you do it to the best of your ability, that is a form of worship. And as
mm,
athletes, we get a unique experience to worship with our sport. Um, and like it's no different than a musician, like who is gifted and pursues excellence in that. Like being the best piano player in the world can be a way that you use the gifts the Lord has given you to glorify Him. Same way with being the best football player in the world. Like whatever you do, if you do it to the best of your ability, and you're not doing it for selfish reasons, that can to me in my mind is a form of worship.
yeah. That's awesome. I probably never framed it that way in my own mind. That's brilliant. Yeah. Thank you so much, Paul. That's awesome.